All right, let's go. Welcome once again. Dr. Greg here. I have been looking forward for this moment for a while. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for subscribing to this channel. I have a very special champion in the studio. You know, it's a person that I admired for so many years because he has everything that a champion should have. You know, he is the Olympic champion. He's 7-time US outdoor champion in the hurdles. He's 7 times world champion in the 110 hurdles, 4 times outdoor, 3 times indoor. He is the Jesse Owen recipient. He won it in 1996. And without a doubt, he is one of the greatest hurdler. Well, I change it. He is the greatest hurdler ever in 110 meters. He has been doing his thing for years, consistent, day in, day out. And he's the only man that ran more sub 13 seconds in the event. The thing I like about Allan Johnson is his attitude. You know, he's one of those champions you can run up to and you can get an autograph, and it would be a pleasure for him. So today we're going to talk with Allan Johnson, and we have a lot of questions that we're going to ask him, and he is ready for the interview. So we are going to bring him backstage now. If you have any question, please put it in the comment section, because I'm sure he would like to hear what you have to say as well. Allan Johnson, it is a pleasure to have you on Let's Talk with Dr. Greg. How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself, Dr. Greg?
I can't complain at all. God has been good to me. You're
good.
looking young, man.
No, you see all this white hair?
Yeah. I don't see any. You see this white hair.
Man, it's everywhere.
Yeah. Well, you're looking good.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
It's a custom on this platform that before the actual interview, we normally give our guests an opportunity to give a shout out. So the moment is yours. If you have a shout out to anyone, you can use it if you want to. You don't have to use it, but I'm giving it to you anyway.
Let me see. Just a shout out to all the Aggies out there, North Carolina A&T State University. We just had our homecoming yesterday, and the football team had a big win over Campbell University. So I want to say shout out to all the NC A&T Aggies.
All right, you heard it, and let's talk. Allan, it's truly a pleasure to have you on this platform. I thank you very much for gracing us with your presence. For all the people who are watching this live on this platform now and who will watch this at a later date, please tell us, where in the United States were you born?
I was born in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital.
Washington, D.C.
Yes.
I lived in Fairfax, Virginia for a while, so I have an idea what Washington, D.C. is like. What was life like for you growing up in Washington, D.C.?
Well, actually, so I was born in Washington, D.C., and my mother got a job with Procter & Gamble. It's a major corporation in the U.S. They make all kinds of different products in their headquarters in Cincinnati, Ohio. So by the time I was about 3 years old, we moved to Cincinnati, Ohio. Then by the time I was 5, we moved to Virginia Beach, Virginia. And then when I was 10, we moved up to Fairfax, Virginia.
Okay.
So I spent my summers in Washington, D.C. at my grandmother's house, my grandparents' house. Running around in Northwest Washington, D.C., going to the playground and playing games like hide and go seek and chase and racing up and down the street all summer long, all day long. And during the school year, I would go back with my mother and be in Fairfax, Virginia. And there I would play football, American football with my friends, and just, as they say, run wild outside. I got a lot of exercise.
Yeah, I wish some of these younger people today get a chance to run outside to see that it's much
Yes,
better than those video games.
exactly.
It is said that a lot of famous people are from Washington, D.C. You have a lot of movie stars, athletes, comedians, singers.
Mhm.
Who would you say was your role model growing up when you were in DC?
Honestly, for me, my role models were my family members, aunts and uncles and parents, older cousins. To me, they were like superheroes. Because so when I was growing up with my family, I was always really small, and everybody else was a lot bigger than I was, and I would, we would have contests and stuff with my cousins, and they would be really good at things, good at sports or basketball or riding a bike or riding a wheelie, and so those were the people that I saw, and when I saw them do those feats, I was like, wow, that's amazing. So to me, they were just as big as any sports star or movie star or anything like that.
Makes sense. I think that
Yeah,
it is true that role models they start from the home, and instead of trying to be like someone else, you really should want to be like the
yeah.
people who are having that major influence in your life. You're one of the best hurdler ever. Was there any specific person or event that actually influenced you to gravitate to track and field?
Um. Okay. Funny. So, like I said, I would play American football with my friends. So really, I wanted to be a football player. I wanted to play in the NFL. I wanted to be a wide receiver. And then when I was in the ninth grade, um, they had an announcement over the intercom about anyone who wanted to go out for the track team, come to an interest meeting after school in the cafeteria. So my my brother at the time, he said he was gonna go. So I was like, well, shoot, if you do it, I'm gonna do it then. So we went, and then we had to get a permission slip signed from the parents and stuff, and I took it home and said, hey, can I run track? Yeah, sure. So they signed the permission slip, and then there I was, and so I wanted to be a pole vaulter because my uncle was a pole vaulter,
Okay.
and so first couple of days we were just outside, just kind of running around, doing some fitness stuff. We had a 400-meter run, so they could see who could possibly run the 400. I ran about 65 seconds, so I wasn't going to run the 4. And so then we went into the gym, and that's where they were letting everybody try out the high jump, the long jump, pole vault, some throwing stuff, events, because we had a pretty big gym. I didn't want to throw anything, so I went to the high jump first because that interests me as well. So I spent a lot of time with the high jump, and then after that I went over to the long jump, and we were jumping off a springboard into some mats, and the very first time I jumped, I did the hitch kick. So the coach stopped and said, "Oh my God, I can't believe," because I'm a freshman, and had never long jumped before, and I just did the hitch kick the very first time. So he kept me over there, and I wasn't the type of person that would say, hey, I gotta go. So I stayed over there, and then practice was over, and I never got an opportunity to get over to the pole vault.
Ah. Well, trust me, dear. So I want to hear more of your story because I've been looking out and trying to read stuff, and some of these things I don't get there. So I want to get to know more about how you came up and the mindset that made you who you are in terms of the champion. Correct me if I'm wrong, though, but it was stated that you said it, your long jump, high jump, a decathlete in high school as well. How did you start the career in that sense, and then you actually made the switch? Was it hard to make the switch, or was it something that you just forced to do because of time or maybe the influence? How did you actually make the switch fully?
Well, so in high school, like I said, so I did the long jump, I did the high jump. So then naturally I did the triple jump. And it was just one day at practice. I'll never forget. I was at practice, and one of the coaches, he goes, "Hey, Allan, come over here. You do the hurdle. You have long legs. We're gonna make you a hurdler." And again, I'm the type of person I'd never wanted to do the hurdles. I thought the event was kind of crazy, but if the coach tells me to do something, I'm not gonna say no. So I went over and started doing the hurdles. So then I kind of did all of those events. I never actually did the decathlon in high school, but I did the long jump, high jump, triple jump, the 110 hurdles, and then the intermediate hurdles. And in the state of Virginia, we did the 300-meter hurdles. So those were my events, and it was like I was outside playing. So I just did all of them the best that I could possibly do them. And then once I got to college, I had hurt my knee. I had patellar tendonitis, so the high jump kind of went to the side. Long jump, I still did it, long and triple, and then hurdles. And then this is gonna sound crazy, but so my junior year at the University of North Carolina, I was training. Didn't really expect much out of the event. I was going to do it to try to score points at the conference meet. Did well there, and I qualified for NCAA's. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to run the hurdles at the NCAA meet. And then I won and set the meet record. So then it was like, oh, well, maybe I'm pretty good at hurdles. And then from that point, I just kind of gravitated more towards the 110 hurdles.
So how were you able to practice for so many events within the same day? How did you do it? Because people don't understand that at that level, it must take a whole lot to be able to do so many different events and still be good at it.
So when we had our technical days at practice, I just did a little bit each day. So if practice was an hour and a half or 2 hours, it would be spend 20, 30 minutes high jumping, spend 20, 30 minutes long jumping, spend 30 minutes hurdling. And I would just do that twice a week and then go compete on the weekends.
That must have been tough. You transitioned from high school into college. What were some of the major challenges? For training for a little bit of the event must have been hard, but what other personal challenge would you say you were faced with as you go through your development?
I think the biggest thing for me going from high school to college was just mentally understanding that it was a business. It was more of a business. High school, it's fun. College, the coaches, that's what they do for a living. High school, my coaches were a math teacher, PE teacher. I can't remember what the other coaches, what they taught, but they were teachers first, and they did track on the side. And then when I went to college, the coaches, their whole lives, their livelihood was coaching track and field, and just understanding that from a mental standpoint, and then um, just the physical grind of how intense the practices were. I remember my freshman year, I started doing things at practice that I didn't think I was capable of. I mean, I remember we would run 500s in high school. The furthest I ever ran was 300 meters. And, you know, we were going out, we would do repeat 500s. And I'm saying, I can't, this is crazy. I can't believe I can do this. But again, whatever they told me to do, I did it.
Yeah. You know, later on in this interview, there's something I really want to talk to you about, because I remember in 1997, I won't go there yet, when you did that mile relay, and I
Yeah.
was saying, Alan, what were you thinking? But we'll get there. We'll get there in time. While you were in college in 1992, you won the 55-meter hurdles indoor, and the same year you finished third outdoor. Then you went on to the U.S. Olympic trials, and you finished seventh in the heats. You performed well earlier in the year.
Mm-hmm.
I want to hear it from you in your own words. What really happened at that Olympic trials, since you ran so well early in the year and ended up dropping out in the first round?
I was, to be honest with you, I was overwhelmed with the moment. I mean, you're talking about, so prior to 1992, my personal best in the 110 hurdles was 14:11. So, like I say, like literally going into 92 and me winning the indoor national championship was something that was completely unexpected, like totally unexpected. So here I am. I'm all of a sudden thrust into this spotlight of being the NCAA champion, which is cool. You know, I'm competing against my peers. Go to outdoors, I get third. Now we fast forward to the Olympic trials, and in my heat you had Tony Dees, Roger Kingdom, and Greg Foster, if I'm not mistaken. You know, and these are
those are some of the best.
Yes, and I had lane 5, so I'm in the middle of the track, and I didn't understand how there was random seating for the first round. And I'll never forget, I did a run out from my blocks. And when I walked back to my blocks, Roger Kingdom was standing behind my blocks. and I thought to myself, I said, man, maybe he wants to use my blocks because he's going to be in lane 5 in one of the later rounds. And shoot, what do I do? You know, so all these different things are going on in my head. And I'm like, man, Greg Foster's over there in 2, and Tony Dees. And then over here to my right is Roger Kingdom. Oh man, what do I do? So the gun goes off, and I just freaked out. And everything was just, I felt like I was 6 inches over the hurdles. I couldn't run. And then I want to say I ran something like 14:37. It was my worst, it was my slowest race all year. And I just, I went back to the hotel and didn't come out for 2 days.
Well, you know, we normally talk to younger athletes, and we say that sometimes they need time to develop, not just physically, but psychologically as well.
Yes.
And I think in your case, as you said, you got overwhelmed, because indeed, those names that you just mentioned, they are also greats in the event, Olympic champion and world champion. So I can understand why you, new kid on the block, would feel intimidated by some of these older, more experienced guys. But here's the good news, though. The following year, which was 1993, you finished second in the 55-meter hurdles indoor.
Yes.
You also finished second at the outdoor championship. What did it take mentally and physically for you to bounce back with such solid performances after that disappointing year before at the US Giants?
A lot of self-talk, a lot of reminding myself of what I said my goals were. You know, because it's multifaceted in that when you're in the moment sometimes. So when I was in the moment in 1992, I really didn't believe that I was worthy of being there, even though I was there. I wasn't worthy of competing with those top guys. But at the same time, my goal was to one day go to the Olympics. Well, this is how crazy that was. My goal was, so when I was in high school, I started doing well. My goal was to go to the 1992 Olympics and compete in the long jump, the high jump, and the hurdles, and get a gold medal. But obviously, at that time, I wasn't physically or mentally ready for that. But so going to 1993, it was like, okay, my coach, he was at the time Charles Foster. He was very, very supportive and very honest with me. And he, after that race, he was like, "Oh, so you were out there getting autographs?" And I'm like, "No, I wasn't. I wasn't out there." He's like, "Yes, you were. Why'd you run so slow?" So we agreed that I choked, and which is okay. It's about what you do after that. So after that, I said, okay, the next time I see these guys, I'm gonna shock the world. So that's what I just kept telling myself. Okay, I'm gonna shock the world. I'm gonna shock the world. So I actually ended up running against those guys at Milrose Games and the Mobile One meet that was in Fairfax at George Mason. And even though I told myself I'm going to shock the world, when I lined up, I was still shaking. I was still thinking, man, these guys they're just better than me. And I remember the gun went off. It was indoors, 55 hurdles, Milrose and the Fairfax meet. They beat me, but they didn't beat me by as much as I thought they should. So even in losing and being close, I gained confidence. So I'm saying, okay, because I took an assessment of how I felt in the race, and I felt I could run faster. So I was like, wait a minute now. If I would have really gone after it and really had the confidence, I could have been up there with those guys. So then I just used that and built on that, and then went on the outdoor season, and I was fourth at the outdoor championships, and then got a chance to run against Colin Jackson at the USA versus Great Britain meet. And in that race, for about 6, 7, 8 hurdles, I was right next to him. And that's what really gave me the confidence to say, okay, wait a second now. This guy is top notch. He ran 13:10 that day. And I'm saying I can run 13:10. And I remember coming back, and Coach Fry was my coach at this point in 93. I remember coming back and telling him, I was like, Coach, I'm telling you, I can run 13:10. My PR was 13:47 at the time. And he just kind of looked at me and was like, oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, all right. Yeah, we just got to keep working. And I was like, no, Coach, I'm telling you, I can run 13:10. I was right there. So I held on to that.
You're saying some things, and I hope as the audience listen that they will fully understand what you're saying, because people see the greatness, what you did, and they thought you always believed that you were able to do it, but they don't understand that it's a transition. The more you do, the more you start to believe. But if you can be more specific, because I've seen you, and I know that a champion is a champion no matter what. And the champion may not always believe initially based on what you're saying, but as time goes by, you carefully assess yourself and you carefully started to believe that you were able to do what you did. Tell me, what were the lessons that you learned in those championships, the US championships, from those 2 races that inspired you to be so great in terms of why you were able to dominate when you look back at where your mindset was and where it ended up? What were those 2 lessons that you would say you learned from the US Championship in 94, indoor and outdoor, that made you who you are as you started to find yourself?
For me, it was just training really hard and always finding a way. My mother used to always tell me, if at first you don't succeed, try again. And she told me that when I was a little boy. And then so I would say to her, well, what if I try again and I still don't do it? And she's like, Allan, you have to try again. You have to keep trying until you get it. And so that always stuck with me. And it was just always, for me, it was always about finding a way to get it done, knowing that there's something that I do that's better than everybody else, and it's my job to find out what that thing is.
Yeah.
And don't stop until you find that thing that you're the best at. And when I say that thing, I'm not talking about hurdles, but something about me, some little thing about me running hurdles is better than everybody else in that thing running hurdles. So focus on that thing, and just keep working on it and keep perfecting my craft.
Mm-hmm. You see, Alan, and this is what I say too when I talk with young people. I see even in Jamaica, many are trying to go pro before time. But that thing that you're talking about, it is always there. And even though you try to, and you're a coach now, even though you try to tell them to find that thing, they're asking you what thing. But in
Yeah.
every human being, that thing is always there. It's just for you to search long and hard enough before you find it, because as you said, you are the greatest in the history of the event, and you're now telling us that it took you a while to
Oh
actually
yeah, for
identify that
sure.
thing
For
and
sure.
perfect it. In 1994 you officially became pro, and one of the things I find though is that the transition has been very hard for some athletes. I've always said that the transitioning from the amateur to the professional, it is no walk in the park, because you find that a lot of the athletes fail to transition to that next level. The coach must be right, the environment must be right, the structure of the camp must be right, and a lot of people, they're short of funding. If funding is not right, you can't really make that transition successfully. But looking back at your first 2 years as a pro, what were some of the challenges you had to deal with? And also, what plan of action did you execute to overcome those challenges, if there were any?
The biggest challenge was finances. Um, Figuring out a way to have enough money so that I could do this, so that I could train at a level, that I could compete at a level to make more money. Um, so that part I kind of handled a little bit. I mean, I had a part-time job that I did, and I worked at this pizza place in Chapel Hill. I worked there from 9 to 2. I was a waiter, so I got tips. So I was able to get enough money to pay my rent and eat. And then I got money from my parents as well, because they were behind me with this. Um, and I just trained really, really hard. I mean, really, really hard. And I just, I just went after it. I put all my eggs into this basket. So remember I said I was with Charles Foster. He was my college coach up until my junior year.
Yes.
My senior year, um, Curtis Fry came to the University of North Carolina, so he was coaching me. And my intention was, as soon as my senior year was over with, to go train with Charles Foster. He was in Atlanta. So it got to be towards the end of my senior year, and I called him up, and he asked me a few questions. He was like, "Have you run faster?" I said, "Yeah." Do you think you can still run faster? I said, "Yeah." He said, "So then, if you ran faster than you did last year with me, with Coach Fry, why are you going to leave?" I said, "Well, I'm going to come with you and, X, Y, and Z." And he says, "Well, you have a place to train, you have a good coach, you're running faster, you should stay there."
Mm.
And I said, "Well, I guess you got a point there." So stayed with Coach Fry at the University of North Carolina. Had access to a track, access to a weight room, access to training room. Where if I would have left, I wouldn't have had access to those things. Um, had good training partners because they made me a volunteer assistant, so I was training with people on the team, and the one thing that I always told myself was, if I'm going to keep going further, I have to continue to do the things that I did to get me to where I am now. I have to continue to do those things if I want to continue to go further. Because one of the things that I noticed with some of my peers was, once they made the transition from college to pro, it was, okay, I'm not going to do all these other things. I'm not going to do the relays anymore. I'm not going to do the base work anymore, because now I'm only doing this one event. Where my thing was, I'm going to continue to do all those things, which is why I continued to run 4x4s and 200s, okay, even into my pro career, because my mindset was, if I stop doing those things, then that's going to take away part of who I am as an athlete, and I may end up being lesser than.
Well, I can tell you it worked. I respect that coach. Never met him before, but he gave you some truth that, based on your personality, you were able to think about it.
Yeah.
And it made sense. Looking back at history now, I'm sure you were happy that you followed his advice. I've said it previously, and I'll say it again and over, that a champion is a champion no matter what. In 1995, at the age of 24, you won your first world championship indoor in Barcelona, Spain, and you also came out outdoor with a bang. You won your first world championship outdoor at Gothenburg, Sweden. I was there. I saw the race. You beat legend Roger Kingdom. I was a Roger Kingdom fan because I saw him on TV for years, so I thought he was. And then I saw you. It started together, the sacrifices that you made, the working at the pizza shop and so on. Understanding that preparation is crucial. What changed? And if you can be as detailed as possible, I would love it. But what changed in terms of your preparation, in terms of the competition and the rigorous, in terms of the mind and so on? What changed that made you start to dominate the world the way you did in 1995?
I think it was, so you go back to 1993, like I said, I was working at the pizza place. So fall 1993, working at the pizza shop. January 1994, I was able to go over to Europe and run some meets. So when I left, I'll never forget, I left in January. I told my boss, I said, hey, I have these meets to run. I'll be gone for about a month, and when I come back, you can put me back on the schedule. Well, he's still waiting for that call to put me back on the schedule. Because when I went to Europe, I made enough money where I could just focus on training. And then so the summertime in 1994, went over, I want to say I probably ran about 30 races that summer.
Wow.
And, so again, I'd made enough money so that fall 94, I didn't have to work. So I think, one, I didn't have to work. Two, just maturing more as a man from one year to the next. I made a huge drop. I went from 94, I think my personal best was 758, if I'm not mistaken. And then 95, my personal best was 738. And I was the fourth fastest person in history at that point. So, and then in the process, all those things that, I remember my first meet, indoors 95, I was at the Melrose Games. So I won that, and I ran a personal best, ran 754. Then went over to Europe and ran against, I'll never forget, I ran against Colin Jackson, Tony Jarrett. And still that whole mindset of, let's shock the world. Let's shock the world. This is going to be the one where I shock the world. And so it was in Stuttgart. The gun went off. And I got to hurdle 2, and I didn't see anybody. And I said, where is everybody? And as soon as I said that, I see Colin Jackson and Tony Jarrett kind of pull up, and I started running again. And I want to say we all ran the same time. Colin Jackson won, I got second. Tony Jarrett was third. And then that was another opportunity for me to gain confidence that, you know, from what I believe 2 years prior in 1993 at the USA Great Britain meet when I ran next to Colin, when I came back and told Coach, hey, I can run 13:10. You know, I finally, I guess it was more like 18 months, but outdoor 93 to indoor 95, I showed that I could run with those guys. And that gave me even more confidence. And then I think it was the next meet I ran against Colin Jackson and beat him.
Well, you said something in about earlier in 1992 when you got into that big beat for the US trials for the Olympics, and you kind of freaked out.
Yeah.
When you watch the Olympics in 1992, it is said that you made a prediction that you would be the next Olympic champion come 1996, and you actually made that prediction come through. Not only winning the gold medal, but you also set an Olympic record. Can you tell us in your own words, Allan, how significant was that win to you? And what did it take to live up to your own expectations and dreams?
Well, it was, again, it's just always going back to hard work and having a plan. My plan in 1992 when I was watching it was to 1993 win NCAAs, run 13:29. Yeah, run 13:29, win NCAAs, and my goal was to drop a tenth of a second every year. So my goal was around 13:29 my senior year. Then my first year out was to run 13:19. And then 1995, my goal was to run 13:0, get second place at World Championships, and then the next year run under 13 seconds and win the gold medal. So I felt like that was a realistic plan. So my senior year, I was behind. My 1994, like I said, I wanted to run 13:19. I ran 13:26, so I was 7/100ths of a second behind. But then the next year, 95, where I wanted to run 13:09, I ran 12:98. So 95, I wanted to run 13:09, get second at the World Championships. But I ran at the World Championships, I ran 13 flat and got first place.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, I'm on track. So now I have to keep going.
You, Allan, without a doubt, you are, and you're a humble guy, so I know you may not want to talk much about it, but my opinion, based on what I see, based on what I read, that you are the most decorated hurdler in the history of the event. The times show it, the medals show it, everything that I see prove that to me. Rumor though has it that you are the greatest ever did it, and I certainly believe in the rumor. But in 1997 in Athens, Greece, you won your second world championship title in the event. I want you to tell us what level of drive, commitment, determination, and sacrifice does it take to entail whatever it did for you to be as great as you were?
Every year you just start over. For me, it was every year was a new year. Every year was an opportunity to try to make history. Try to do something that nobody's ever done. Greg Foster had 3 world championships. My goal was to go and surpass that and try to put it out of reach of other people. If I could have won 6, that would have been that was going to be my deal. It was like win, just keep getting first place for as long as possible. And just really put it out there.
In 1999, this would have been, I think it would have been your year. And as you said, you were chasing after these world championships.
Yeah.
You were doing great indoor and outdoor. You were really racking up these championships. But in 1999, you were injured most of the season, and you still finished second at the US Championship. The same year, you had to withdraw from the semi-final of the Civil Spain due to a calf injury. Most people really don't know the extent. But could you please tell us in your own words, in the words of a champion, what were the specific injury or injuries that you had to deal with, and how rough was the road to recovery? And also, what did it take mentally for you to regroup and prepare for the future?
It was, so I can't remember what, it was my lead leg. So it was my right calf, right kind of the juncture between the gastroc and soleus. I had a very, very small tear, but, coming down off the hurdle and the amount of force that you come down, the muscle has to be at 100%, because it's a weight bearing muscle. I heard it earlier I want to say it was Paris that year. I heard it. I went to Paris. I was warming up. I heard it, and I didn't run the Paris meet, so I went back home and then I just rehabbed it until World Championships. Did the preliminary rounds at Worlds in '99, and then warming up for the next round, I was like, this thing is really bothering me. So I talked it over with my coach, and we decided that with the Olympics coming up the next year, it wasn't worth it to just really injure myself. So I withdrew from the championships and called it a year.
Okay.
But what I later found, it was my fault. I wasn't taking care of my body the way I should have. I mean, I wasn't doing any of the massage or anything. I'm just going to practice and just kind of being haphazard. And I could get by with that when I was 20, 22, 23, 24, 25, but at the time I was 28 years old. And at that age, that's the beginning of the body not recovering like it did when you were really young.
Yeah.
So that was a lesson that I learned the hard way. So I did the exact same thing the next year.
Yeah, that was a heavy price to pay based on what you were trying to chase.
Yeah.
Because you had everything to actually win another championship. You could have accomplished that. In 2000, early in the year, you started to perform well. It shows that whatever you did in the fall, that it worked, because you seem to be in great shape. You won the US trials in an impressive time of 12:97. However, you suffer a hamstring injury prior to the Olympics. They said it was in Japan, and you end up going to the meet, but you end up finishing fourth.
Yeah.
Could you tell us how discouraging was that injury? Was it the same injury, and how discouraging was that injury, and how great was the impact psychologically for you? Because you're a person with a strong mind, so you could overcome almost anything. But what was the psychological issue that you had to pay?
It was so just like the year before. I was not taking care of my body the way that I should. I was just going to practice and going home and not doing all the physio stuff that I should have been doing. And I was actually in Monaco practicing, and I hurt my hamstring. So I went home, and the Olympics was the next meet. And I wasn't 100%, but I was healthy enough that I could have won. But I was just rusty, and I didn't run a good race. And I remember being in the final thinking, okay, this is my opportunity to repeat as Olympic champion. And we're running the race, and I'm going, and Garcia kind of pulled away from me. And I'm saying, so that was the first time that I had been in a championship race in my pro career or I'm going as hard as I can, and somebody's pulling away from me, and the realization in the race is hitting me. Okay, you're not going to win, and then I'm still running, and I'm okay, you can get the silver medal, and then Terrence Trammell came past me, and then just every all the air in my sails just went out, and I go across the line and I say, man, I can't believe I came here and got the bronze medal. And I look up at the scoreboard and I see the first two names. I don't see my name. Then I look at the bottom of the thing and I don't see my name. And I look back up because I'm saying, okay, well, why is my name not in third? And I look and I'm fourth and I'm saying, how did I was like, no, I was third. And look at the replay of Mark Creer.
Hmm.
He ran through the finish line and dipped, and I left there with no hardware. And that was the most devastating defeat of my career,
Hmm.
because up till that point, any for the most part, if there was a championship that I really wanted to win and I was in the race and I won it.
Hmm.
That one I was in the race, I wanted to win, and I was fourth. So it was. I mean, I went underneath the stadium and cried my eyes out.
I would. But I'm sure that a lot of people may have write you off
Yeah.
because sometimes when you lose that race, one of the biggest races of your life, sometimes you can take it real hard and it can affect you as you move forward. But in
Oh, it
2000,
affected me.
it did.
Oh yeah. I
But
mean,
you overcome it though.
it was so for me, I was 29 at the time. So the next year I was turning 30, and and I'm listening to what other people are saying about me. Hey, you had a good career. Hey, you won the Olympics once, and I'm saying had. What are you talking had? I'm still doing this thing. So it was a major blow to my ego, and I had to I had to go home and pick myself up and say, hey, you know what? When you first started this thing, nobody believes that you can do it. So it doesn't matter what everybody else is saying. It matters what you say, you being me, and believing in myself. So why is it going to be any different when 2001 rolls around than when 1994, 1995 rolled around? If I could make it then, when I was supposed to never be
Hmm.
a world champion, why can't I get back now? And I've already proven that I can do it. So I always try to latch on to positive things, the positive things that point in the direction that I can achieve my goals.
Well, I always say, Alan, if you don't believe in yourself, then who can
Yeah,
you expect to believe in you? You are the only man to have won 4 world championship
yeah,
outdoor titles, and you won 3 indoor world championship title
yeah,
as well. In 2001 and 2003, you won your third and your fourth world championship title, making it 4. Those accomplishments, in my eyes, are magnificent and they are worthy to be acknowledged for years to come. After everything that you have endured, I want you to tell me in your own words these 3 questions, the
okay.
answer to these 3 questions. How hard was it to stay motivated and inspired throughout these different challenges? And 2, what kept you motivated for so long? And 3, you must have been hanging out with Perseverance, man. He must be your best friend. But how were you able to stay motivated for so long, and what kept you inspired for so long?
Well, the first thing, the thing that kept me inspired and kept me doing it for so long was I really, really, like really enjoyed it. Like that was the me competing in track and field was the most enjoyable thing I've ever done professionally. And if I could physically do it right now, I would quit my job tomorrow and go and train and go run hurdles. If I could, I would do it till I'm 90. And I mean, I really, really enjoyed it that much. So that was one of the things. And there were periods where it was hard to stay motivated in the sense that like 1990 like so 1995 it was I had to prove I could do it. 1996 for me I had to prove that 1995 was not a fluke or because in 1995 a lot of people said that I won because Colin Jackson wasn't in the race and Mark Career wasn't in the race. So 1996 for me was like, okay, last year you guys said I won because they weren't in the race. Well, this year they're in the race. So let's see if I can do it. And then 97 was, can I repeat as world champion? There wasn't as much motivation in 1997 as there was 95 and 96, but came out on top. Then 99 happened. I didn't compete. So then 2000 was, hey, I'm gonna do like Roger Kingdom and I'm gonna win my second gold medal. But then 2001, like I was saying before, everybody's saying, hey, you had a good career. And we go into Edmonton and I'm saying, okay, you suckers think I'm done. Okay. And man, Dr. Greg, I was scared to death on the line. That final came up because Garcia. So it was me and Garcia were the favorites. We'd been going back and forth in the Grand Prix circuit prior to that. We were in the semifinal together. He beat me in the semifinal in Edmonton. So then the final rolls around, and I'm saying to myself, "Man, this dude is tough. How am I gonna beat him?" I mean, my heart at the start line is pounding. Like saying, "Oh man, I gotta find a way to pull this out. I gotta find a way. What am I gonna do?" And I remember thinking, "You gotta nail the start. If you don't nail the start, you're gonna have a big problem." So, gun went off. I got in the middle of the race, and I'm like, "Okay, I got it." And he comes back on me in the middle, and I'm saying, "Uh-oh, premature." And then he ran out of space. And I ran 04, he ran 07, and I was like,
You see, a champion is a champion no matter what. And yeah, there are some battles that you have to fight that is tougher than others, but you believe in yourself and you know you will pull it off. And when you pull it off for real, it's you play that in your mind over and over because that's what would make you better the next time around.
But then so that's 01. So then 02, I'm like, I'm feeling myself again. Yeah, I'm the man. And Garcia tattooed me so many times in 2002, and I'll never forget. We were at the World Cup in 02, and it's the last race of the year. He beat me so bad, I stopped running halfway through the race. I ended up getting second, but he beat me something by like 0.3 of a second. And I'll never forget, I remember in the race when he's pulling away and I said, you know what? I was like, I quit. I'm not running. You can have it. But when you see me next year, you better be freaking ready. I mean, I said this in the race. So that was my motivation then going into 2003. It was continuing the rivalry with him and stuff. So,
and it was good because it bring out the best in you
in
time. And you pull out these things time and time again because in 2004, after one of the slowest loser in terms of making it to the next round indoor, you finish, well, put it this way, you had one of the slowest time semi-final, and I'm sure you're there thinking, what am I going to do? Are we thinking, can Allan Johnson pull this one off? But given the qualifying placement, how confident were you going into the final? And what was off in the qualifying race that you had to fix in order to come up with a championship record in those? What is it? Tell us.
I just wasn't on. I don't know what it was. So for me, it was. For me, I kind of like had levels. Even at championships, I had levels that I would run at. So it was like the final was 11 out of 10, and the prelims maybe would be 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, semifinals 9 out of 10, and it was just kind of like trying to run fast enough to make it without overexerting myself. I mean, even though it's only 60 meters. And I felt like I was running as hard as I could, working on things, making sure that everything was going to be on point for the final. And it just wasn't clicking like I thought it was. So then for the final, I took a deep breath and I said, well, you know what? Here we go, man. What are you going to do? So I just decided, you know what? Just forget about everything and just run as fast as you can. Don't worry about your technique or anything like that. Just as soon as they shoot that gun, just go all out.
Let me ask you this, Allan, because age to me, you continue to run similar times even when you were older. Would you say age affected you, or was it a level of motivation in terms of your preparation, or you had so many other things to do that it actually interfered with your commitment to training the way you used to when you were at top of your game?
So remember how I was saying that, say, 1999, 2000, I was not taking care of my body the way that I should.
Yes.
So after the Sydney Olympics, I got a massage therapist that I started working with on a consistent basis. So I stayed healthier. As I got older, I was actually staying healthier than I was in my late 20s. So that's why I was kind of able to run the same times. Looking back on it, had I taken care of my body in my early and mid 20s like I did when I got into my 30s, I probably would have run faster then. But at the time, it was, it's one of those things where if you're fast enough to win, you kind of think, okay, I'm doing all that I can, and I really wasn't. So there's looking back on it, there were more things that I could have been doing.
You could have done, yeah. Well, sometimes it carry over when you're not consistent in that era. And believe me, I know I ran for 14 years. It's hard to stay on top of everything every single time, because sometimes you just want a breather.
Yeah.
In 2004 at the Athens Olympics, you clipped the hurdles and fell in the semifinal, and you missed the final. Did missing the final affect you in any way? And if so, how?
Yeah, it was extremely disappointing, but I think that at that point, I had done, with all that I had done in the sport and the event, I knew that moment wasn't going to take away from me. It wasn't going to take away from my legacy. I had an opportunity to add to it, but it wasn't going to take away. And it still wasn't as devastating as Sydney was 4 years before. It was one of those things where I was like, you know what? This just wasn't meant to be. I'll come back. I have to brush myself off, and what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna come back and be ready for 08. And obviously 08 never happened for me, but it was one. I remember seeing Donovan Bailey right after walking off the track. He was like in the mixed zone or something. He said, "Man, you all right?" I just told him, I said, yeah, man, I'm gonna be all right. I mean, it doesn't mean that I'm still not one of the best hurdlers in the world. It just means I fell. I fell
Yeah,
at unfortunately, I fell at this track meet that happened to be called the Olympic Games.
yeah.
So
But it's good that you got those hardwares early,
yeah,
so at least you did what you were supposed to do. Because looking at your resume, I can say that it is very impressive. 4 times world outdoor champion. I enjoy saying it, so I can just imagine you.
yeah.
3-time world indoor champion, silver medalist as well. During your 14 years of reigning as an elite athlete, Allan, you were ranked top 5 12 times and number 1 in the world 4 times. You have run more sub 13 seconds than any other hurdler in the history of the event. What was your secret strategy when it comes to longevity in such a competitive event? And I know you said that you learned some things along the way, but there
Hmm.
must have been some other things that you did that you're not saying that help you to accomplish all these things that I just mentioned.
I mean, honestly, it was just enjoying it, and really trying to continue to always. So every year, obviously, every year you're gonna evaluate and you say, okay, what could I do better for next year than I did last year? But it's just maintaining that core uh, training philosophy where I continue to do the things that I did before. And that, like I say, running 400s and running relays whenever I can, 4x1s, 4x4s. And, just I just always enjoyed the new challenge. And depending on what period of my career it was, enjoying the challenge of the when I was the young guy competing against the older guys, and it was people my age I'm competing against, and then I was the old guy competing against the youngsters. So it was always something for me to try to prove that I could do. So once you get to '04, it was Lu Shang and Ladji from France, and uh, then it was Robles from Cuba after Garcia. So I mean, it was always that challenge of, hey, I'm gonna try to knock you off too. So I mean, and I just had fun. I mean, I remember in '08, um, Garcia was on, not Garcia, Robles. He was on fire. He ran 7.3, almost broke the world record, and he was uh, he was winning everything. That was the first time. That was the first time in my career. Even though I was going hard and I enjoyed it, and I was going to try to make it. I knew I couldn't win. I knew no matter what I did, if everybody had their best day, I couldn't win.
Hmm.
That it was going to be uh, Robles or Lucian,
Hmm.
and that my goal was to try to get a bronze medal for '08.
Well, I appreciate your honesty on this because I still say it, a champion is a champion no matter what. Yeah, a champion knows that as you get older and the younger guys
Yeah,
coming in, that sometimes you're not going to give it to them, but they have to earn it.
yeah.
I'm going to go back a little bit because I was curious and I'm just getting the chance to ask you this. You're laughing,
Okay.
so you have an idea what I'm going to ask you. In 1997, when you choose to run the 4x4, the mile relay,
Hmm.
what were you thinking? Did somebody influence you to do it? You did well though. You did great. But I remember at the end of the race where you were on the ground and I'm like, Alan, what's going on? Tell us a little bit
so
about that.
so went to Penn Relays in 1997. So during the early season, I would try to run 4x1s, 4x4s. So I went to Penn Relays, and I was like, hey, I want to run a 4x4. And everybody just kind of, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, whatever. Yeah, 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 yeah. And then so it comes time for the race, and they put two teams out there, and I say, hey, well, which one am I on? I knew I wasn't going to be on the A team, and I'm saying, okay, well, there's 8 guys out there, there's two teams. I'm supposed to run the 4x4. So they made a third team. They made a C team, and went out there, and I split 44-9 at Penn Relays. So Dean Hayes, who was the coach at World Championships, remembered me running in that 44-9 at Penn Relays. And at World Championships, I don't know if you remember, that was the year Michael Johnson got hurt
Yes.
in the Donovan Bailey race.
Yes.
Everybody was hurt. There were a bunch of guys, all the 400-meter people were hurt. And we had 4 guys. Tyree Washington
Chris
had just run.
Yeah, I
he had
remember
just
that.
run 400.
Yeah.
So they wanted to let him rest. So they said, Allan, can you run the 4x4? I said, hey, let's do it. So I went out there, and it was an opportunity for me to do something I had never done before at World Championships. And I remember watching it on TV, and how you guys make it look so easy, and you're just so pretty running. And so I was like, hey, shoot, I can do that. I told him, I was like, look, I can run fast enough that if you guys give me a lead, we can win our heat and we'll be in the final.
Yeah.
I said, I can promise you that. So we went out there, and I remember being in the mix zone, and all those guys, they looked, they were like, what are you doing here? And I was like, you're about to find out what I'm doing here. So, but it was
a good
very
run.
tiring, but it was fun.
You did well. I know. I take off my hat to you.
It was fun.
You are now a coach at the collegiate level.
Mm-hmm.
Looking back at your career, what did you learn that you can use to help some of these athletes transition successfully from amateur into the professional? Because I'm sure they too have goals, and they too want to see if they can chase some of your records. What can you share that will help them to transition successfully?
The biggest thing is to just take it one step at a time. So I had an athlete, Gabby Cunningham, who I coached collegiately, and then she went on to the 2021 Olympic Games, and also Coach Cravont Charleston, who's trying to get there as well. And my thing is, pay attention to the small things. Be thorough in everything that you do, but at the same time, take it one step at a time. You're not gonna go from A to Z. You're not gonna skip over all the letters. You got to go from A to B to C to D to E to F and so on.
Yeah.
And when you're young, you're impatient, and you want it now, and just trying to instill in them that it's gonna happen. If you keep working, it's gonna happen, and it's gonna happen in its own time. And always stay positive. Even in the defeats, even in the things that go wrong, find the positives and draw from that.
Good advice. Good advice. I appreciate that. What would you like the world to know about Allan Johnson that they don't already know?
That there are a lot of different levels to me. I mean, a lot of people. I'm quiet. I'm soft spoken. I'm quiet, but too often, sometimes people mistaken that for weakness, and then when they push me too far, they find out that there's more than just this quiet person. That I'm thoughtful, I'm caring, and I want to see people do well. Just overall, and whatever it is that they're doing. I mean, even if I'm competing against someone, I want to see them do really, really well.
Alan, it's truly a pleasure to have you on this platform. I wish you all the best because I know that you are a great person, and I know that what you did on the track is going to be difficult for someone to come up and outperform you in terms of your history.
Mm-hmm.
As I said before, you have everything that it takes to be a great champion, and you follow through with that. But the thing I love most about you is what you just said. You're caring, you're sharing, you want the best for everyone. And sometimes we don't find champions who think that way about others. I give you the last word. Is there anything else you want to share with us before we go?
Um, no, I think that's pretty much it. I just want to thank you for having me on here. I really enjoyed talking to you,
My
and
pleasure.
I'm
My
sure we're going to see each other somewhere down the road.
definitely,
Yeah,
definitely.
we
Well,
we can talk more.
yeah, well, we have the information. I'll be calling you more just to check
Yeah,
up on you. You now have a new head coach position. I'll be
yeah.
cheering for you, and I wish you all the best in everything that you do. Mr. Johnson, it's an honor to have you to grace this platform. I thank you very much. I wish you all the best and have a blessed day in all that you do.
And you as well.
I will. Thank you very much. You hear it here. Let's talk with Dr. Greg. Allan Johnson is the best ever in this event. He has proven that time and time again. He has been consistent. He has been, you see the tenacity, and I know that he will continue to do his best in terms of coaching, and he has my support in every way. I thank you all for coming out. I thank you for watching this program. Please, if you haven't subscribed, please go ahead and do so. And if you like the interview, please go ahead and share. I thank you all for coming out. And again, you heard it on Let's Talk with Dr. Greg. Have a blessed day.